All right, so this week is kind of a special episode where we're going to be talking to Ricky from 2 Bit da Vinci, and we're going to be talking everything Tesla, kind of a review, a year-end review of how Tesla did this year. Everything from cars to solar to energy.
So I feel like we've talked a lot about their cars. Obviously, 2019 really was about their cars. That was the highlight. But Tesla's energy business is another part of their business that I think is poised to have a huge breakout year in 2020. So Matt, you want to start us off with that?
Sure. I mean, the Tesla energy business is interesting. It's kind of been flying under the radar, not even just this year, but the past like 2 or 3 years. It's been kind of just bumbling under the surface. And the car business is getting all the attention. There's been some criticism of Tesla for that in the energy business, because once they acquired Solar City and they kind of enveloped that, and they stopped doing the leases of what Solar City's main business was, you've seen their solar business decline just quarter after quarter, just going into the toilet, so to speak. And this year was the year where it was like all the stuff that they've been doing behind the scenes is starting to kind of click into gear. And so for me, this was kind of the year of Tesla energy, of seeing all those things kind of culminate. And part of that started with the solar rental plan, which was just kind of really surprised me. I've never heard of anything like this before. So it takes the whole equation of needing a lot of capital to put solar panels on your roof or in your yard, because you don't have to worry about that. Tesla will install it for you. They'll maintain it. They'll do everything about it. And you just pay a small fee to them every month, and you get to benefit from the energy you're generating. So in my area, if I did it, it would cost me $50 a month to have my solar panels on my roof. And I actually know, I have solar, so I know exactly how much I would be benefiting. I'm saving about $100 a month or so on my bill. And if I'm paying $50 to Tesla, I'm coming out $50 ahead. Right. So right off the bat, it's like no investment, no upfront costs. You don't have to worry about it. And that's always the biggest complaint about solar, is how expensive it is to go into it, and needing subsidies and incentives. And there's a lot of people that really, really hate subsidies. It's like, this takes that all out of the equation. It's like, you want to get a cheaper bill and go green with your energy as best you can. This rental program is a fantastic way for anybody to step into it at a very, very low cost and start saving from day one. It's just an absolutely incredible product.
Interesting. So does Tesla claim the tax credit then when they install the panels?
Yeah, they probably do.
And what's crazy is that they'll take them off and remove them, and you can be on your way. You can unsubscribe, if you will. And I think, is there a fee? It might be a small fee or something, but it's incredibly...
There's a fee.
It's very generous, though, and it's not bad.
Yeah. You could actually leave the panels on your roof and just unsubscribe, and then you're done. And then for a very small fee, I think it's like, I don't know, maybe $1,500 or something like that, they'll remove the panels and repair the roof where they had to drill, and then you're done there too. So it's a fantastic entry point for not a lot of money, which is what impresses me the most about it.
Because that really has been the problem for most people, is the upfront capital cost. When you're paying a mortgage and everything else, a $10,000, $20,000 electric bill for a bill for solar is tough to swallow, and I get that. You know, Tesla is really known for some of their technological disruptions, but this is one of those business model disruptions that they've taken a model, and they're not making new panels or more efficient panels, but they're changing the way we think about how you pay for them, and
exactly.
Pretty amazing.
This basically turns them into a legitimate electric company in a way. It's like a distributed electric company. It's like a virtual power plant, essentially, what they're doing. A distributed power plant is what they're doing. Yeah,
and we've talked a little bit about this in our videos, but I think this is going to really increase the level of adoption. Here in California and San Diego, we get a ton of sunshine, and so pretty much everybody has solar. A lot of people have solar. But I think this will help solar spread to more places, maybe in the Midwest or in the South, where electricity prices aren't that bad, but I could still benefit from a $50 bill and still save money. So this really takes that kind of guesswork out of the equation. I think the next step will be for the utilities to keep up with Tesla. And this is the part that I'm less optimistic about, because Tesla's not the one doing it. But I kind of see a future where the grid is more of a broker. So if I have 100 solar panels and I have all this excess energy, and my neighbor could buy them for me. The grid, if you will, is just the broker says, hey, I have a guy with excess, you need it. We'll take a small commission, if you will, and the power kind of is decentralized because now we don't have to have power plants that are hundreds of miles away. Neighbors can share power amongst themselves. But that will require an intelligent grid, and it'll require these utility companies that are not known for innovation, to put it mildly, to kind of step up their game and to match the brilliance of what Tesla and some other companies are doing. So I'm a little less optimistic about those companies, to be honest. I mean, unless Tesla becomes a utility provider. But again, monopolies, it's not that easy to do. So hopefully they can keep track and keep up with what Tesla's doing because, that's an amazing future world where we can decentralize power and we can kind of keep it where it's needed and throw in power walls and batteries, which we'll get to. And now we're talking like 24/7, kind of a new grid, like a grid 2.0.
Exactly. Going from the solar rental into the solar roof was the next thing that for me was just like, oh my God, here we go. Because the version 2 of the solar roof, as appealing as it was, I actually looked into the solar roof 2 for myself. It wasn't available quite yet when I was getting solar on my roof here in Massachusetts, but I was looking into it anyway, and I talked to Tesla about it. It was going to cost, I don't have the original price quote, but it was, I think it was around $70,000 to do my roof.
Really?
So it was more than twice as expensive as just getting the panels I got. So the cost of panels for my home plus a regular shingle roof in my area was cheaper than getting the Tesla solar roof.
Got it.
And for me, that was kind of like, what's the point? Because it's still too expensive. And then they come out with version 3. And that's where it was like, just like the Cybertruck, it was, how much does this cost? If you price it out today, I actually priced it out for myself out of curiosity, and it would be less money than the combined new roof solar panels by $10,000 or so in my area. So it's one of those, if you're building a home or you need to get a new roof and you're interested in solar, that solar roof 3.0 now is at a point where it's like, it's a no-brainer. It's like, you shouldn't be getting shingles and panels for a new roof. You should just go straight to a solar roof because you'll also get a bigger system. That's the things. I've got a 9.6 kilowatt system on my roof.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah. With the solar roof, I think it was 10 or 11 kilowatts. It was a bigger system because you can fit more panels into like different areas of your roof where you can't fit these large panels. So it's like I would get more production for less money. And that's where it just blew my mind of, okay, the solar roof 3, that's it. That's the turning point for these tiles.
So did you need a new roof, by the way?
No, my roof was in good shape. Our shingles still have a lot of life left in them. So it didn't make sense for us to get a new roof at the same time when we got our panels.
Yeah, same for me. I have a asphalt tile roof, and it's like a 70-year roof, and it wouldn't make sense for me either. But for anybody who does need a new roof and solar, it's amazing. And I'm hoping that they stick to their deadlines and their timelines for when they're going to start producing these and the rate that they'll produce them at, because that's the one. I think I noticed a lot of commenters saying like they're skeptical that they'll be able to do that, especially at scale, because you have to make thousands of these for each person. So it's kind of a manufacturing challenge, but I think Tesla really has figured it all out. They have their plant in New York ready to rock, so I'm hoping that they can stick to it. So the solar roof, the Tesla solar glass roof is really interesting, and the timing I think is perfect. Here in California, we have a new energy code going into effect in 2020, and the code stipulates that all new construction has to have solar panels on it.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine.
That's a big move.
Big move. I mean, as crazy as California can be sometimes and all the outlandish prices and everything else, I do like that we continue to kind of drive this forward. So all new construction is going to have solar. So based on the size of the house and how many square feet will determine how many panels you'll need. But that's really going to be interesting because new construction really is what Tesla should go after. And in my video that I made about the solar glass roof, my point was this is going to be a no-brainer for places that have really high home values anyway. In San Diego, homes are easily $1 million. On the very low end, possibly you can get something as cheap as like 600,000, and more realistically, like 1.1 to 1.5 is probably more, in keeping. So when you're doing that, a $50,000 solar Tesla glass roof might not be that big of a deal. And I think when you have two homes that are made, builder A goes with a traditional roof and has to put retrofit panels after the fact. Could you imagine you call a roofer to come in and put a roof on, and then you have to kind of dig it out and put posts in. And then you have house 2 by builder 2 that has Tesla's roof on it. Which house would a prospective buyer in California want to buy? I think it's going to be pretty obvious, right? And I think in really premier places, so here in San Diego, like La Jolla, Del Mar, there's these beach areas where homes are probably closer to $4 million. And in those kinds of areas, this is going to be a huge hit. People are going to see that. It'll be like a conversation starter, kind of like having a Tesla Model S or something, where people are like, oh, you have Tesla's roof. I want to check it out and I want to see it. So it could be a huge selling point. And I have a feeling those houses are going to have better resale value when it comes to selling them, or if they're first brand new construction homes, they'll fetch a better market price. So the timing for us in California is really interesting. And I think that they've got a winner on their hands. It's just a matter now of manufacturing them and getting them into the hands of installers and stuff.
I was gonna say that's the big challenge, and that's one of the things about that announcement too that impressed me was they're actually going to be opening this up to non-Tesla installers. Like they're going to be doing training for third parties to try to really ramp up the number of people that know how to install these roofs.
Which is going to be key, because there's probably no way, that you're going to retrofit hundreds of thousands of homes in 50, just in the U.S. alone. Forget about internationally, which a lot of viewers have asked, like from other countries, like, will we get this? And it'll probably come. It'll probably come later on. But let's just hope that they can make them in huge quantities, and this could be a breakout year for them. And do you know about timetables about when it'll be available?
From what I've heard is they're already starting to roll it out in certain areas of California right now already. But I don't know what that actually means, because it's very spotty reporting I've been finding.
Sure. So it seems like the Powerwalls are only available if you buy. So if you do the rental subscribe model, it would be no Powerwalls. And I think the Powerwall really is the most interesting and exciting part about the energy business for me. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because their batteries are currently at a premium. They have cars to make. They have the Y coming online. So I'm sure the Powerwall, in a future world where the batteries are just flowing and they've got so much surplus that Powerwall prices come down, they might offer it. But right now it looks like just for buyers.
Yeah, the other thing about the Powerwall, that's one of those other things about Tesla Energy not looking like they were doing well for the past couple of years. Powerwalls pretty much stopped being installed pretty much for most people over the past year and a half or so, 2 years. And part of that was because they were so self-constrained during the ramp up for the Model 3. They were taking all of the cells from the Powerwall stuff and they were funneling it over to the cars. And now that they've gotten past that bottleneck, they've started to ramp back up production on Powerwalls, which is one of the reasons, like for me, 2019 was this great kind of turning point for the energy business, because we've seen the solar rental, the solar roof, and now Powerwall production is starting to ramp back up. And it won't surprise me if whatever they talk about with the battery and powertrain event for their cars, if there might be improvements or cost benefits to the Powerwall going forward in the next couple of years. Because if they can produce cells cheaper, I would imagine the price of the Powerwall could potentially drop at some point too.
I think the current prices are around $7,000 or so. I mean, give or take, installed, which is a big investment. But the peace of mind if you have a power outage or anything else is just like incalculable. Especially, in California, we had these wildfires this year, and there were areas in Northern California without power for like a week at a time, which is kind of unheard of. I mean, this is 2020, 2019, and to talk about not having power in a state like California for a week at a time. And a lot of it was kind of preemptive, and it was kind of a precautionary measure. It wasn't like there wasn't power to deliver. They turned off the power to alleviate any risk of further causing these wildfires to spread. But Elon was pretty active on Twitter during that era when this was happening, and he was letting people know, we'll give you a discount. We'll knock off the price of the Powerwall if you want it during this time. So you can have, especially if you have solar, it's kind of a no-brainer because you can charge it during the day and you have power even at night, and you get that much closer to being like truly self-reliant. And that's kind of what Tesla affords us to be, is more self-reliant. If you have a Tesla car, you don't have to worry about the petroleum companies or what they do with their prices or global number of barrels produced a day or the prices per barrel. And the same kind of goes here. You don't have to worry too much about what's going on with the power companies. You can kind of just be more self-reliant.
There's an independence to be had when you go solar, get battery storage, get an EV. It's like you really are your own power plant. It's incredible. It's a great option, and especially like for where you live, you have time of use rates. So a battery even gets you cheaper just energy off the grid, because you can charge up your Powerwall at night when you're paying 9 cents a kilowatt hour, and then use that during the 50 cent a kilowatt hour time frame. So even without solar, batteries make a lot of sense to try to kind of reduce costs.
Yeah, if you don't have time of use, then that part doesn't factor in. But if you do, yeah, you're right. Even without solar, it makes sense. And that's why I actually think that batteries might be even more important than solar at this point, because we have a lot of solar and we have a lot of ways of producing energy. What we're really bad at is storing energy. The entire grid that we know it, and electricity in the modern world for the last 100 years has been just in time, on demand. There's been, a light switches on and there's some plant making enough power to power that light, and there's really nothing more than that. And if we have too much, sometimes we have to just waste it. And so the battery aspect of this equation is one of the biggest challenges, I think, to having a cleaner energy grid. And I've always liked the idea of having more decentralized power or generation or storage. And if every homeowner had, and we have tax credits that'll elapse eventually, but if every homeowner had a Powerwall or Tesla solar or just generally solar from any company, we wouldn't have to have huge solar farms on the ground taking up space that wildlife or vegetation or flora and fauna could grow on. We'd have more of a decentralized grid. And there are other companies that are starting to emerge too. We've been talking with a company called PalmCube that we're going to talk about in a video in the next couple of weeks, that are making a 20 kilowatt hour battery for the house. And we're going to probably review that maybe in January or February. But because of Tesla's work, there are others who kind of see the value in this space, and as the amount of lithium-ion battery production has increased, there's going to be new players that are emerging to offer more battery solutions as well. But for any homeowner out there who has solar and is thinking about like other aspects of the self-reliance and renewable aspect of energy, you got to think batteries at this point, right?
Well, the other thing about that ties into like here in Massachusetts, one of the electricity companies here, National Grid, actually has a program right now where they're incentivizing home batteries as part of a distributed grid scale battery system, where they will actually pay you. It's like what you talked about before. It's like if there's a surge in use and you have spare energy in your battery, they will siphon a little bit off to help to reduce that peak demand, instead of having to spin up a peaker plant. They'll just take it off of this like distributed grid of batteries that's in people's homes. And then what they do is they pay you for that. So you get a little bit of a kickback for the energy that they've siphoned off. It's a really interesting program. I really hope they roll that out to my electricity company, because I would love to be a part of that. But it goes right to what you're talking about. It's like distributed electricity and distributed storage generation, all that kind of stuff. It makes so much sense. It's like you don't need these gargantuan power plants anymore, when we can just gather the energy from the sun and the wind and hydro, and then we store it in batteries and just take it as we need it. It makes so much more sense.
Absolutely. The pessimism for me comes from not having much faith in all these utility companies. Here in California, our utilities are all monopolies. We have like PG&E in Northern California. We have SDG&E. I just don't know that I have that much faith in them to kind of see this coming. These are typically kind of more old-fashioned companies, right? I don't know that they're like looking forward to the future. But for them, the way I see this is you kind of have two options. You either lose your business slowly to people who are going to make their own power and have their own batteries and need you less and less. And the only real answer I can see to that would be, fine, we'll raise your base rate, meaning like you pay a higher amount just for having the service of having us hooked to your house. And that'll just make people mad and eventually want to go off grid probably. But the only other real answer is to kind of become the broker like we were talking about, where, like you mentioned, right, what your utility companies are doing up there in Massachusetts, which is really amazing. It's a shame that these companies are all separated and they're not all talking to each other or connected in any way, because the cool stuff that's happening there doesn't help me here in California. And that's kind of a shame. But maybe when, you know, the news breaks that they're doing this new thing and it's working out for them, maybe the only real hope we have is if it's economically viable or economically advantageous, that others will follow suit in the interest of saying, hey, our shirts are on the line here and we got to try to, you know, modernize and get with the times. Otherwise we risk being like increasingly less and less profitable. And that is a real concern, because like in our neighborhoods, we have a lot of people with solar panels, and with net metering and things, I can imagine that the average bill is going down. And we've got companies like Apple's new, the Spaceship Campus, that their goal is to be 100% renewable, and they've got solar panels everywhere, and more warehouses. And like I just noticed that there was an Amazon plant where in the Central Valley, and they're just covered with solar panels on top of their roof. And for them, it's just business. Like, we want to save money. And as more and more customers do this, like, what are these companies going to do except hopefully get the memo and modernize?
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll see that slowly over time, but it's going to take a while. The last thing that about Tesla Energy that's really kind of impressing me is their Megapacks and their grid scale storage that they're also building out. So even though they were siphoning cells off of the Powerwalls, they were still putting together these super packs and Megapacks for grid scale energy installations, like the Hornsdale plant in Australia, which was like the one that got all the press when they first did it. And it's turned out to save a lot of money for them in Australia, and they've been just recently been expanding that. So they're basically doubling the size of the Hornsdale plant because it was so successful. And now we're also starting to see those kind of similar plans sprinkle out elsewhere. I mean, there's a grid scale energy storage here in Massachusetts on Cape Cod. They're building a 93 megawatt hour Megapack installation in Alaska. And I know they're doing an installation somewhere in California as well. So it's like, you're going to see more and more of this. I mean, if you look at their numbers that they've been putting out over the past year for installations, in Q1, they had deployed 229 megawatt hours. In Q2, it jumped up to 415. And then in Q3, it went to 477. So it's just like this like rocket ship taking off for the amount of installations they've been putting in for these grid scale energy storage options they've been doing. So between the Powerwall ramping back up, these Megapacks, the new rental options for solar, it's just, for me, this was them kind of setting the table in 2019 for Tesla Energy. And in 2020, in 2021 and beyond, we're just going to see that just take off. It's going to be really incredible to watch. So that basically wraps it up for today's conversation. And I'd really like to thank Ricky for joining me in this conversation. It's been a really fun collaboration working with you on this. This is a first for me. I know it's a first for you too. I hope you had fun doing this.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for having us. And we definitely have to do this more often in the future.
And thank you so much for watching. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next one.